Hello from inside the Galen Center. Connor Morissette and Ahmad Akawi coming to you after the USC women's basketball team beats Mississippi State to advance to the Sweet 16. It's a bittersweet win, though, Ahmad, because we have to start with JuJu Watkins. We just received word that Watkins tore her right ACL and she'll be out for the remainder of the NCAA tournament. That injury happened in the first quarter. She was picked up by the trainers, clearly in a lot of pain, carried off the floor. A devastating blow for USC on a night when, without Watkins, USC played really well and got a 96-59 win. But the big story tonight is that USC's All-American sensational sophomore JuJu Watkins is out for the year.
At what cost is this win? At what cost is all these fans cheering them on? And, they score over 90 for the first time in 2 months, give or take, before today. Very bittersweet. It's our second go-around doing instant analysis because, the first time, we talked about what ifs and, all that good stuff. But now that we know that she did tear her ACL and she will be out the remainder of the season, and I'm assuming a good part of next season, it begs a lot more questions than we can answer. Where do we go from here? They go to Spokane. Can they win the game? Probably.
Against Kansas State?
Against Kansas State on Saturday at 5 p.m. on ESPN. Perhaps. If they play like they did today, moving the ball. 29 assists today. First time they've had that many, I think, since the second game of the season when they had 28. So it was a great big affair. A lot of people scored, but they lose JuJu Watkins, so
crazy. You can't, of course, just take that injury out of the equation. That pretty much is the equation. But if we do that for a second, Ahmad, amazing night for USC. The crowd tonight, the best Galen Center basketball crowd that I've ever seen. Kiki Iriafen sets the USC single-game NCAA tournament record for points with 36. You saw Rhea Marshall in her last game at the Galen Center bank in a buzzer-beating 3 just before the half ended in the first half. And then you saw when she gets subbed off to end her career, the crowd chants her name, crowd chants Kiki's name. Kaylee Heckel with the great spin move, righty layup at the other end of the floor here. That got the crowd going. This was an awesome spectacle for women's basketball tonight. And it has this cloud over it because of the Watkins injury, but if we can just set that aside for a second, Ahmad, USC, they played really, really well without her, and some people really stepped up tonight.
Yeah, she went out
with about 4:43 to go in the first quarter.
Yeah, so they played all the last 3 quarters, and the end of the first quarter, they played a really good first quarter. They outscored Mississippi State 17-2 to begin it, and they just continued it. And they continue to build the lead throughout the entire game. Relentless defense, passing the ball, spreading the ball. Kiki Iriafen, after the game, she said that she was asked about the assists and moving the ball and stuff like that. She said she loved it. She said the ball was electric. That's a very good analogy as to what they were doing tonight. She had 2 assists and 2 blocks on top of that. Kaylee Heckel, she had double digits off the bench. Avery Howell had double digits off the bench. She hit 4 threes. Kennedy Smith, she had 10, I believe. Great defense. She was clapping on defense. She was definitely getting in their faces and stuff. They limited Mississippi State center. They did really well against them. Boxed out, rebounded the ball. They did all the little things good.
And what was so great about tonight, the crowd was great, and the USC team, that they knocked off the rust that we saw after a couple weeks off early on against UNC Greensboro. But that JuJu Watkins injury, the crowd reacted with anger, and this place became a hell of a lot more hostile. And I don't think Mississippi State is as good as USC, clearly, but if they play it on a neutral court, I don't think it looks like it did tonight, where USC just runs away with this game. It looked like at some points they were playing different sports, where USC's pressing, and Mississippi State, a team that made the NCAA tournament out of the SEC, just had no answers for it. It was a dominant win spurred on by this great crowd tonight. And you could tell, you mentioned Kennedy Smith clapping, Kiki Iriafen is waving the crowd on, and Malia Samuels was feeding off the crowd. This was a really, really awesome way to send USC off to the Sweet 16 outside of the one dark cloud that is the Watkins injury. But I asked Lindsey Gottlieb after the game, like, how do you just navigate this after tonight? I'm sure were some of the highlights of her career, but also on the flip side, it was so devastating losing her star player, and that's sort of the big takeaway for me tonight, where the injury was awful, but there were a lot of great things happening too.
At the end of the day, like they said after the game, whoever's on the opposite side, they don't really care if you have a player or you don't have a player. If you're any player that is potentially going to face USC, you like your chances without JuJu Watkins. I believe ESPN put up a graphic where in the minutes that JuJu Watkins is on the floor, I believe they score, I think, 110 points, versus when she's off the floor, they score 102. Now, that discrepancy of 8 points it can be big and can be small depending on how the game goes. In the fourth quarter, when you need 8 points, it matters. But if you're in a blowout, it doesn't really matter. So we'll see how they do without the production of JuJu Watkins. I don't want to be, I don't want to be messed up, but it seems like USC plays very well offensively without JuJu Watkins, but she is a star in women's college basketball and college basketball, period, no matter men's or women's. And having her on the floor is better than not having her on the floor. So they have to navigate that, and they have to figure out how to battle that and say, well, there's still the rest of us, next man up mentality in a sense, and we go on and run the offense through Kiki Iriafen, because clearly it works. So I think she was 6 points away from a career high. She had 36. So, clearly she can be the number one option. And this would be the first time that she's the number one option after playing 3 years behind Cameron Brink at Stanford.
USC, you wonder, they look really good tonight without JuJu, but against better competition, what is that going to look like? Because I'm sure you remember, Ahmad, in that first UCLA game in the third quarter and a little bit into the fourth, or maybe it was at the end of the second quarter and then the full third quarter, JuJu Watkins scored points. No one else scored anything. USC was 0 of 17 from the floor, and outside of JuJu Watkins in that game, and they still were able to win because of JuJu's magnificence. So there are moments, and tonight stands out, where she's not available and USC looks really good, but I could also give you examples of them just how badly they've needed her. The UConn game comes to mind too, where she was really good down the stretch and was so great to start that game. When the competition gets really tough, that's of course when you're going to miss your star players. So we can end here. How far are they going to go? They have Kansas State, the number 5 seed, on Saturday in the Sweet 16. They win that game, they're probably going to play UConn. If UConn can beat Oklahoma, it was going to be a really tough game even with JuJu against UConn, because UConn's fully healthy now. It looks even tougher now.
Yeah, against Kansas State, I believe they have a good chance.
Yeah.
Against UConn, it's going to be a real challenge. Cameron Becker
Paige Beckers.
Paige Beckers. Oh my goodness, it's late.
It's late, and same hair color.
Paige Beckers is a wonderful guard. She scores at will. So it's hard to guard someone like that. Of course, Kennedy Smith will be one-on-one with her a lot of the time. So, there is that portion of it, but, UConn is not a one-trick pony. So you have to be able to beat them in a lot of different ways. We'll see if that happens. Best case scenario for USC, in my opinion,
Defense.
Yes, defense. But the best case scenario, in my opinion, is Oklahoma beating UConn if they can.
Of course.
But, it's much better to face Reagan Beers in Oklahoma than it is to face UConn. But you still got to get past Kansas State. Next game up, it just goes from there. And then Final Four, you worry about it when you worry about it. And then championship, you worry about it when you worry about it.
USC's calling card has been defense all season. JuJu, of course, I believe is up for the Defensive Player of the Year award, so she's a huge loss. But even without her, Ray Marshall's still in there. USC can be a very good defensive team, and maybe if they do go up against UConn, it's that defense that keeps it close, and then down the stretch, Kiki Iriafin's a pretty good offensive player. She can pick up some of that slack in the clutch. But USC, of course, has to get past Kansas State first, so we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. As you said, Ahmad, worry about that when we have to worry about it. It's a bittersweet night, though, from the Galen Center as USC, they beat Mississippi State in a rout to advance to the Sweet 16, but lose star player JuJu Watkins for the season. He's Ahmad Akawi. I'm Connor Morissette. He'll have full Sweet 16 coverage from Spokane. I can't wait to see you get up there, Ahmad, and cover this team where we have a certainly new big storyline right now without the star. See you Saturday.